There is a particular kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with sleep. You can wake up fully rested, 8 hours, maybe more. Your body feels fine. But then you step into a conversation, just a simple exchange, and suddenly something shifts. Not in your body, but in your mind. By the time it ends, you feel heavier, slower, drained in a way you can't quite explain. And the strange part is, nothing physically happened. No running, no effort, no visible struggle, just words. This is the kind of exhaustion that Arthur Schopenhauer understood better than most. He didn't just observe human behavior, he dissected it, and what he discovered is uncomfortable, but brutally honest. Not all conversations are equal. Some people don't just talk to you, they consume you. You've experienced it before. You say something thoughtful and they twist it. You express uncertainty and they treat it like weakness. You try to explore an idea and they shut it down with absolute certainty. And somehow, no matter how calm you start, you leave the interaction questioning yourself, replaying the conversation in your head, thinking, why did I even engage? This isn't accidental. Schopenhauer believed that certain individuals operate in a completely different psychological space. They are not seeking truth, understanding, or connection. They are seeking dominance, control over the conversation, control over perception, control over you. And here's the dangerous part. They don't even realize it. To them, being loud feels like being right. Being certain feels like being intelligent. Winning the moment feels like winning the truth. But in reality, they're doing something far more destructive. They are pulling you into a game that has no resolution. You try to clarify, they escalate. You try to reason, they simplify. You try to end it, they provoke just enough to pull you back in, and before you know it, you're trapped in a loop. Not because you're weak, but because you still believe the conversation can be resolved. That's the illusion. Because the truth is, some conversations are not meant to reach understanding. They are designed to drain you. And once you understand this, something shifts. You stop asking, how do I win this? And start asking, why am I even here? Because the real danger was never their words. It was your willingness to engage with them as if they were operating on the same level as you. They're not. And the sooner you see that, the sooner you begin to protect something most people lose without realizing, your mental energy. Because once it's gone, you don't just lose focus, you lose clarity. And without clarity, you start playing their game without even noticing. Once you begin to notice this pattern, you can't unsee it. It stops being just a bad conversation and starts revealing something deeper, something predictable. Because the people who drain you rarely do it randomly. They follow patterns. And Arthur Schopenhauer warned about this long before modern psychology ever tried to explain it. He believed that what we call difficult people are often the easiest to recognize if you stop listening to their words and start observing their behavior. The first sign is subtle. They treat your humility like weakness. You say, I might be wrong, and instead of respect, they sense opportunity, not to explore, but to dominate. Your openness becomes their entry point. Your willingness to think becomes their excuse to shut thinking down. And suddenly, the conversation shifts, not toward truth, but toward control. Then comes the second pattern. They speak in absolutes. Everything is always, everything is never. There is no nuance, no curiosity, no space for complexity, because to them, uncertainty feels like losing. And they would rather be confidently wrong than quietly thoughtful. But here's what makes this dangerous. Confidence is contagious. The more certain they sound, the more your mind begins to question itself. Not because they're right, but because they're loud, unwavering, and relentless. And if you're not aware, you start adjusting your position just to stabilize the interaction, not to find truth, but to reduce friction. That's when you've already lost, because now You're no longer thinking clearly, you're reacting. And this is exactly where they want you. There's another pattern most people miss. They don't resolve things. They recycle them. You think the conversation is over. You move on. But somehow the same tension returns later. Slightly altered, slightly rephrased, but fundamentally identical. It's like trying to close a door that was never meant to shut. Because for them, the goal isn't resolution, it's continuation. As long as the interaction keeps going, they remain in control of something, your attention, your energy, your emotional state. And the more you try to fix it, the deeper you get pulled in. This is why you walk away feeling unfinished. Not because you failed to explain yourself, but because the situation was never designed to be completed. It was designed to keep you engaged, to keep you thinking about it long after it ends. And this is where most people make the critical mistake. They believe that if they just find the right words, the perfect argument, or the clearest explanation, they can finally break through. But Schopenhauer saw through this illusion, because the problem was never a lack of clarity. It was a mismatch of intentions. You were trying to understand, while they were trying to win. And once you recognize that difference, something inside you begins to shift. You stop over-explaining. You stop defending every point. You stop trying to earn understanding from those who aren't even looking for it. Because now you see it clearly. Not every conversation deserves your intelligence, and not every person deserves your energy. At some point, you've probably told yourself, maybe I just didn't explain it well enough. Maybe if I say it differently, they'll understand. So you go back in. You refine your words. You simplify your point. You become more patient, more precise, more controlled. And yet, nothing changes. They interrupt. They twist your meaning. They respond to something you never even said. And that's the moment most people still don't fully understand. You're not failing to communicate. You're trying to communicate in a situation where communication was never the goal. This is exactly what Arthur Schopenhauer was pointing at when he described the futility of engaging with certain minds. Not because they are incapable of thinking, but because they are unwilling to question themselves. And without that, no real conversation can exist. Because a real conversation requires one thing above all, the possibility of being wrong. But these individuals have removed that possibility entirely. Their certainty isn't built on deep thinking. It's built on emotional attachment. To them, being right is not about truth. It's about identity. So when you challenge their ideas, they don't hear information. They feel threatened. And when someone feels threatened, they don't listen. They defend. This is why logic doesn't work on them. Not because your logic is weak, but because their resistance is emotional, not intellectual. You bring evidence. They bring volume. You bring nuance. They bring extremes. You bring patience. They bring pressure. And slowly, without realizing it, you get pulled into their rhythm. You start speeding up. You start repeating yourself. You start trying harder. And that's the trap, because the harder you try to win, the more energy you lose. And the more energy you lose, the less clearly you think. Until eventually, you're no longer even arguing your original point. You're just trying to escape the discomfort. That's why, hours later, you replay everything in your mind, thinking of better responses, sharper comebacks, clearer explanations. But here's the truth most people avoid. Even if you said those perfect words, it still wouldn't have changed anything, because you were never in a debate. You were in a psychological loop. One where the outcome is already decided, not by logic, but by the other person's need to feel right. And once you truly understand this, something powerful happens. You stop seeing these interactions as challenges to overcome and start seeing them as traps to avoid. Because the goal was never to defeat them, the goal is to not get involved in the first place. And that realization changes everything. You begin to pause before responding. You begin to observe instead of react. You begin to ask yourself one simple question: is this a conversation or a trap? Because once you can answer that honestly, you gain something most people never develop. The ability to walk away before it costs you. And that is where real control begins. Here's a very specific moment. Right before you get pulled in. Most people miss it, but once you see it, you realize it was always there. It's that split second where something feels off, a slight tension, a subtle irritation, a quiet voice in your head saying, "This isn't going anywhere." And yet, you continue. You respond, you explain, you engage, not because you have to, but because something inside you reacts automatically. This is the real trap. Not them, but your unconscious decision to participate. Arthur Schopenhauer understood that protecting your mind doesn't start in the middle of the conversation. It starts in that exact moment, when you still have the choice to step back. Because once you're emotionally involved, your clarity begins to fade. You stop observing, you start defending, you stop thinking, you start reacting, and by then, you're already inside the loop. That's why self-awareness is everything. Not the kind where you analyze things later, but the kind where you catch yourself in real time, when your tone starts to change, when your patience starts to drop, when your thoughts begin to race. Those are signals. Not that you're losing the argument, but that you're losing control of your state. And the moment you lose your state, you lose the advantage. Because now you're operating on their level. Fast, reactive, emotional, exactly where they want you. But here's what most people never train themselves to do. Pause. Not externally, internally. A silent interruption of your own reaction, where instead of answering immediately, you observe. You ask yourself, why am I responding? What am I trying to prove? Is this even worth my energy? And in that pause, something powerful happens. The illusion starts to break. You begin to see the pattern unfolding in real time. You notice the repetition, the predictability, the absence of real understanding, and suddenly, the urgency disappears, because now you see it clearly. There is nothing to fix here, nothing to resolve, nothing to win. And that realization gives you something most people never use, the option to disengage before you get drained. Not dramatically, not emotionally, not with frustration, but calmly, almost silently, because you're no longer trying to change them. You're choosing to protect yourself. And this is where the shift becomes real. You stop measuring your strength by how well you argue, and start measuring it by how easily you can walk away. Because true control isn't shown in how long you stay, but in how quickly you recognize when to leave. And once you master that moment, you stop getting pulled into battles that were never yours to fight. You stop wasting energy on people who are never trying to understand. You stop losing yourself in conversations that only exist to drain you. And for the first time, you begin to feel something rare in a world full of noise. Mental clarity, the kind that doesn't come from winning, but from knowing exactly when not to play. Once you truly see the pattern, the final step is not action, it's restraint. Because knowing that certain people will drain you is one thing, but refusing to engage with them, that's a different level of discipline. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't just suggest avoiding pointless conflict, he pointed towards something deeper. Emotional detachment. Not coldness, not arrogance, but control. The ability to hear something foolish and not feel the need to correct it. To be misunderstood and not feel the urge to defend yourself. To be provoked and remain completely untouched. Because once you understand the nature of these interactions, you stop taking them personally, and that changes everything. Their words lose weight, their tone loses power, their presence loses influence. Not because they changed, but because you did. You begin to realize something most people spend years chasing. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves clarity. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Sometimes, silence is not weakness, it's precision. Because every time you choose not to engage, you're not avoiding something. You're protecting something. Your focus, your peace, your mental energy. And over time, this becomes your default state. You no longer get pulled into unnecessary debates. You no longer replay conversations in your head. You no longer feel that invisible exhaustion that follows meaningless interactions. Because you've removed the source, not by changing the world, but by changing your relationship to it. And here's the paradox most people never understand. The moment you stop trying to prove yourself to everyone is the moment you become untouchable by most. Because now, your energy is no longer available for manipulation. Your attention is no longer easy to capture. And your mind is no longer a battlefield for other people's chaos. This is what it truly means to protect yourself, not by fighting harder, but by choosing your battles so carefully that most of them never even begin. So the next time you feel that familiar pull, that urge to respond, to explain, to prove something, pause and remember, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. And if this way of seeing the world speaks to you, stay close.